the channel. Anyone who knows me outside of YouTube knows that I have been working to try to get this job outside of being a bartender. After I put together my resume, I was called for an interview, and from that first interview I realized it was a lot longer of a process. I ended up having to go back for 2 more interviews. They called every job that I've worked at since I was in high school. It was this very long-winded process. Good news, I did get the job. I started last week. At the same time, when I was doing some reflection on the way in which I was handling those interviews, it all boiled back down to the way in which I was interacting with myself during that time. And so I really needed to address the inner dialogue that I was having, the way in which I was talking to myself throughout these situations. It was almost alarming. It really pointed a big arrow at this idea of my inner dialogue. So today I really just felt the need to get in front of the camera and really address that, because I was so unaware of the way in which that I was communicating to myself that I was completely not knowing of the majority of the dialogue happening inside of my head was mostly negative. And I think that after you become aware of your inner dialogue, it can be one of the most transformative ideas. It will propel you so far in transforming the way that you view yourself, your self-esteem, your self-awareness. So the point of today's video is really just to bring awareness to that. Inner dialogue is mostly automatic and mostly very subconscious, right? These string of thoughts really do help us shape who we are, how we see the world, and the way in which that we feel like we can impact ourselves and the world around us, right? But these string of thoughts aren't really just casual. These are actually a powerful string of ideas that shape our psychological understanding of how we operate in the world, as well as our spiritual concepts and how we feel like the world should operate. So our self-concept is heavily influenced by our internal beliefs and automatic thoughts. These beliefs usually stem from like past experiences or social conditioning, or 9 times out of 10 even upbringing, like parenting styles. I believe that our inner dialogue is a reflection of how our inner state is. Whenever we are feeling like our most authentic selves, then it will cultivate an understanding within us that we are worthy of telling ourselves that we are doing a good job, but also accepting that and understanding that the constant unawareness of putting ourselves down so much is not conducive of who we want to be and how we want to show up in the world and how we would treat someone else, or how we would like to even treat ourselves. And so I truly believe that the inner dialogue that we have will cultivate within us and then in turn go outward and affect the reality that we create for ourselves. So if I'm constantly telling myself that you don't deserve this job, or you are not good enough for this job, or this is not something that people like you are capable of doing, then I'm unconsciously taking myself out of the running. So just understanding how these patterns work will bring some awareness, because I think the biggest thing about inner dialogue is just becoming aware of it. Once you become aware of it, 90% of it goes away. But there are 2 very specific ideas that I want to get into, because I think once you become aware of these 2 things, then it really drives home the idea that. But I do want to bring up these 2 aspects of inner dialogue, because I think if you become aware of these, then it'll bring more empowering authenticity to your life, and you'll become a lot more compassionate towards yourself and a lot more compassionate towards your outer being and others around you. So the first idea is limiting beliefs, right? So limiting beliefs are basically just fixed, unconscious ideas that we hold about ourselves, our personalities, and overall just our worth that is usually unconscious. From a psychological perspective, these beliefs are usually formed in childhood. So for example, right, a child who doesn't have a fully developed cortex experiencing some kind of rejection from their parent, right, internally they form these neural pathways that are basically saying, okay, well, I don't deserve attention. Those neural pathways don't just go away over time. If they're not addressed, they just strengthen and they get stronger. And so they go into adulthood with the idea that but I didn't want to stop, so I had to change. That's why I just completely changed the scenery. But this video is going to look really strange, but like I was saying, those neural pathways stay within them for the majority of their life if it's not addressed, right? And so that shapes their behaviors, their relationships well into their adulthood. For me, a limiting belief that I used to hold about myself was that I wasn't approachable, right? I used to think that, oh, for some reason or another, that people didn't feel comfortable coming up to me and saying hi or just holding a conversation, because I would see other people. I was like, oh, well, those people just had a random conversation. I used to think that I wasn't deserving of connection, or I didn't have the capability to connect with people, or people didn't see me as somebody that they wanted to connect with. And so that belief made me act more reserved and more introverted, which is not bad by any degree, but it subconsciously made me act in a way that made me more closed off. It was almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy, because it ultimately reinforced my belief that I wasn't worthy enough to be talked to. So to dismantle the belief, what I ended up doing was I started another section in my journal where all I would do was write down instances where people would come up to me or have a conversation with me or do little things for me that completely unsolicited. So now I have this record of positive experiences and accomplishments that I had with other people to call back on. A good way to always have a tangible real world experience that I can always go back on to combat those feelings of people don't want to talk to me, people don't want to connect with me, this, that, and the fourth. One day I went into a store so that I can try on some scrubs for my new job, and I ended up leaving my badge there. I left my badge. The girl that was helping me with finding and fitting my scrubs ran all the way out from the store to my car to give me my badge back. So I wrote that in the positive experiences and accomplishments section of my journal. And so when I have this challenging belief that, okay, people don't like to do nice things for me, I can go back and say, wait, but 2 weeks ago, she went out of her way to come bring me my badge. Or that guy waited for me to empty my cart so he could take my cart back to the front. And it could be even the littlest things, right? A friendly gesture, a chill conversation, or as far as I go, when people talk to me at the bar and they give me compliments, or they say, oh, you know, you articulate yourself well. And in those moments when I write them down, I have a tangible record of real world experiences that directly contradict those limiting beliefs that I've had before. You're basically rewiring your neural pathways, because these old beliefs that you had before are now being replaced by logical, informative, and real world experiences. It's really unfortunate because our minds tend to remember the negative things, so we have to be very, very intentional about recording the positive ones, because you and I both know that you'll remember a bad thing that happens and capable of bringing up old trauma faster than we can remember something that happened that was good. So we have to be very intentional about writing down the good things, but calling back on negative things isn't necessarily a bad thing though, because it's an evolutionary mechanism, right? I'm pretty sure you've heard this in a psychology class you've taken, or any kind of science class you've taken, but it's a survival mechanism, right? Where our brains are wired to remember the bad things so that we can avoid them in the future. But I really want to encourage you guys to just keep a section of your notes app on your phone of just positive encounters and experiences that you have that directly contradict those limiting beliefs, so that you can have access to it whenever need be. By documenting these powerful moments, even though they don't feel powerful at the time and they might seem very minuscule and minimal, later on down the line, whenever you're having those feelings and those thoughts and those beliefs that limit who you are and how much space that you take up energetically, it's going to be such a sharp and powerful feeling whenever you're able to go back and say, you know what, this is not right, this is not accurate, this doesn't even make sense, because last week this person did this for me. It made me feel good, and it made me feel like I'm actually worthy, or I'm actually capable, or I have the ability to do these things that I am constantly telling myself that I can't. And so by doing that, you reconstruct the way you talk to yourself, and you reconstruct who you are and who you want to be and the personality that you want to embody. And so again, I just really want to encourage you guys to keep a record of that. So the next thing I really want to get into is the idea of overgeneralization. So basically what overgeneralization is when one thing might happen to you, or a very specific scenario might impact the way that you feel about yourself, or the way in which you feel like you embody your being, and you decide to take that small scenario and apply it to all facets of your life. So for example, you'll say, I didn't do well on this math test, and so that equates to me being unintelligent in all facets of my life. The way in which that would impact my life is, my friends invite me to trivia, but I declined the invitation because I failed my math test, and so I don't feel like I'm intelligent enough to be an active participant or a significant participant in trivia night. This is textbook confirmation bias. So confirmation bias, real quick, is when we believe something about ourselves, we will psychologically look for things to confirm that negative feeling. Oh, well, I failed my math test, and then I'm asked to do some kind of difficult math problem in class, and then you get it wrong, and then you tell yourself, oh, well, I knew I was bad at math, so it's okay, I knew I'm just bad at math. And that cycle alone can repeatedly reinforce this negative self-concept that really isn't healthy and is not logical at the end of the day. It just doesn't make sense. The way in which you combat overgeneralization is specificity. You have to be very, very specific and stick to the details of the way in which that you are approaching every situation. So instead of letting one mistake define the entirety of who you are, you have to ask questions like, what exactly did I mess up on? Was it a mistake, or was it an opportunity to learn? I truly believe that each experience, even though it's a part of the whole and the totality, I think that every moment can be unique and isolated if you choose for it to be. So when you are capable of separating A from B, then it brings you a sense of power and a sense of control over how you want to show up and how you decide for yourself, how you want to think about yourself and your inner state and who you actually are and what you're actually capable of. Because whenever you become more specific, you become more compassionate towards yourself, right? Something that happened to me earlier in the day is not going to be dragged on for the majority of the day because I'm able to isolate that situation. So I truly believe that every moment holds its own meaning and its own potential. And so through specificity, we can really just get over the idea of this overgeneralized idea that because of one thing happens, our whole entire existence is at stake. Inner dialogue really is just something that I needed to tackle recently. You know, as much as I know, I would like to share with you guys so that you guys know. And I really do want to encourage you guys to make those intentional steps to combat those feelings, because over time you're going to find that your inner voice is going to be a lot more supportive and a lot more nurturing and a lot more balanced and harmonious. And that alone is going to change the trajectory of your life so that the majority of the time that you're with yourself, that you feel like is a good experience. But I really do appreciate you guys for watching. And if you guys have any introspection or any comments that you want to leave, please, by any means, you can leave it in the comments below. I'm going to link a tally page in the description. It's basically just a form. You guys can fill it out if you guys want to interact. You guys can share your own stories of inner dialogue and how you overcame it or how you're struggling with it now. But otherwise, I really do appreciate you guys for watching. Y'all have a good week. I'll see you guys. Thank you.